Okay, we have a little bit of a projector issue here. As you can tell, it's going to be really hard to see this. But why we're here to talk about the 4th Gen Prius. Why do I get excited about the new 4th Gen Prius? Because its capability is beyond anything that I've ever driven with a gas engine. In fact, it's so efficient, it puts my Prius plug-in to shame in the San Diego area where I drive. Let's go over to the next slide. Move it back. Okay, I'm just going to give you, 2015 was a great year for the automobile industry. 17.4 million vehicles were sold. The only time that's been topped is the year 2000. So the recession in 2008, 2009, that's gone. Auto industry is doing great. We have a prolific amount of vehicles that we get to choose from, and the brand new Prius is one of my top picks for the sedan segment. Toyota has sold over 8 million hybrids since they started selling hybrids. 3.5 million of those have been the Prius liftback. Look at this number here. This is important. Since the first Prius drivers have saved 5.8 billion gallons of fuel by driving a Prius instead of a standard everyday car around the world. We're talking about 20 to 22 mile per gallon cars here in the United States and 30 to 35 mile per gallon cars in Europe. The Prius alone has saved that all by its own. Okay. The Prius was the hybrid that started it all. As Wayne mentioned, 97 was the introduction to Japan. Honda beat them into the United States with an Insight, which is a two-seater that a few of us love. But the Prius is known as the hybrid that started it all here in the United States. 20 years, 3.5 million in global sales. Think about that. 3.5 million of these cars are on the road. Many of them still on the road even today. Despite the 3rd gen, last year's production was down a little bit, even though low fuel prices, and we all know, would affect sales of Prius. And yet it was only down about 7%, where fuel was down by 50% in many cases. And that shows you the power and strength of Prius, even beyond fuel prices. And then its next gen competitor from Ford, the Prius outsold the next gen hybrid from Ford by 7 times. And that's been going on forever. And that's just the Prius. We're not talking about the Camry hybrid, the Avalon hybrid, which I'm driving today. A whole bunch of cool stuff here. Next. Now we can talk about the all-new Prius. And when they introduced this car, it wasn't just about MPG, which has always been the case. We can talk, and I love talking about MPG, but they added a few things to make it more acceptable to the average driver. We're enthusiasts here, but there's also the general public that even still today, they're like, I don't know about this Prius thing. They're going to get into this thing just like you guys, if you haven't been in a 4th gen, and find out there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of ride and handling qualities, a lot of low aviation qualities, and a lot more fun to drive qualities built into this new generation to make it a car we want to drive, not just we want to save fuel. Okay, Wayne's gone over through some of this. 2.4 inches longer, 8 inches wider, but 0.8 inches lower. The peak of the roof was moved forward 6.7 inches. Okay, and if you look at this one, they also added what we call a floating roof design. That means that rear seat pillar near the back, it's all black there, and it looks like this roof is just kind of floating there. It's not attached. The way that they move that forward, it gives better visibility, better headroom, but also better aerodynamics. That's where they got a lot of this 0.101 CD gain or drop. The belt line is lowered 2.2 inches. That means even though they lowered the car, there's more window space for you to see out of. And if you look at the angle, that angle it looks like it's moving forward because of the angle that belt line is set up at. It's just more aggressive. It's already been mentioned that this is the one up or tied with the lowest coefficient of drag of any mass-produced vehicle in the United States at 0.24. It really skips through the air. The grill shutter we talked a little bit about in Wayne's presentation, it's two things. One is it will close at higher speeds to move the air around the car instead of up and then create turbulence in the engine bay. but two, it will usually stay closed on a cold day like this until the engine comes up in temperature. Then it will open as needed. Now that could still use a little work, but it is there and it works overall for the average driver to better efficiency than what the previous gen, which we were stuffing the little tubes and foam and all that and hoping that it didn't fall off down the road. Another thing, LED projector headlamps, highs and lows. If you were to go in an Audi and buy an Audi A3, and I love the A3 too, especially in a diesel that you can't buy anymore, but if you were to buy an Audi and you wanted LED lamps versus the HIDs or standard halogens, they're going to charge you $1,200 to $1,500 bucks, or they might say a package that's $4 grand. It's standard in the new Prius. What LEDs do, especially in the snow, is they cut through the snow like anything you wouldn't believe. Halogens have a yellow tint to them, and it reflects off white snow. LEDs, they cut right through it. Heated power outside mirrors are standard. LED daytime running lights, some tail lamps. All of this is to reduce energy consumed just for lighting, and they do a great job both for lighting your way and for saving energy. Next. Driving dynamics. This is the key to making the Prius acceptable for more individuals besides the enthusiasts and me. Toyota's new global architecture, this is going to be the base of a lot of Toyota products in the future by creating one architecture that's going to get 5 stars on the NHTSA crash test rating, top safety pick plus rating on the IIHS. This platform will be part of probably Corolla and overseas probably the RS, and any number of products can be built off this, including some small SUVs. Okay? High strength steel up from 3 to 19%. They could even go further, so you can expect that in the next gen. By doing that, they got a 60% increase in torsional rigidity. What that means when you're going around a corner, this car is not going to be flexing as much as the previous gen, and then better than the second gen, which is way better than the first gen. Better ride handling and stability are part of that equation. When you stiffen up a car, you get a lot of ride quality that you wouldn't normally get. McPherson struts up front with a little bit geometry change to make it a little bit better for on-center feel, a little bit better driving feel when you're going down the road. It's easier to turn, stiffer control arms or shafts so that you actually feel the road instead of that kind of wavy feeling that Priuses are known for. They changed that. The big thing though is we talk about lightweighting this car. They lightweighted everything, but they added weight to create a double wishbone suspension. Double wishbone suspensions were created for race cars. And the reason why is a double wishbone suspension, as cars on a torsion beam, as they do this, see the angle of the tires? As I'm doing this, the angle of the tires to the road, they don't stay flat. An independent suspension can stay flat as it's riding through its travel. So you get better road holding. You can isolate, and what they did by doing that, they got 1/3 less road shock just by going to this independent suspension. You got a better handling car, a better riding quality car, and you don't feel the shock and lower noise vibration and harshness. Next. Lower noise, engine compartment. They actually have more insulation in the engine compartment. Again, they lightweighted everything, but they wanted to add those qualities that make a car we want to drive for the rest of its next 10 years. Let's add where we need to make it quieter. They reduce engine startup vibration with new mounts. Floor silencers. What they did here is there used to be holes in all these floor silencers underneath the car. What they did is they started filling those holes with better insulation. The urethane foam over there, over the top, in the A-pillars, there's more sealants instead of just steel welds. All of this is to reduce NVH, noise vibration harshness, which is what we would call ride quality when we're going down the road. Is it noisy? When we hit a pothole, these things sound like things are crashing. They removed a lot of that by adding this weight where they needed to make this a better car to drive for the average driver, not just us enthusiasts. Okay? The drivetrain is where this thing really gets good. You'll see the 54 city, 50 highway rating on the nickel metal hydride base model that very few people will purchase. And then from the Prius 2 Echo all the way to the Prius 4 Touring, lithium ions, you get 54 city, 50 highway, but the Echo is 58, 53. Now there's some debate as to where these numbers come from. and I asked them questions at the short lead where we had some of the engineers, and even they couldn't quite explain it. System horsepower is about the same at 121. They changed to a new measuring system because you've got electric coming on really hard at low RPMs, gas engine coming on really hard at high RPMs, so how do you mix this curve? They're just saying at max peak you're about 121, 10.6 to 60, so it's the same as the previous gen Prius as far as acceleration. Again, what do we need? An 18-wheeler takes about maximum throttle of 60,000. They might get up to speed in about 30 seconds. So if they can survive in the real world at 30 seconds, I think we can survive in the real world with 10. New EGR, where they got this 40%, and what Wayne was talking about, this 40% thermodynamic efficiency. You take a gallon of gasoline and you light it off and it has so much heat, okay? That amount of heat, 100% of it would just escape to the atmosphere. What they're trying to do in an engine is create as much of that, turn much of that heat into spinning the wheels, okay? This engine at greater than 40%, it's only increased to 1.5 to 2% over the previous gen, but at 40%, this thing is efficient, more efficient than many diesels on the road. That is something, that's a turning point here, is it's more efficient than many diesels on the road. And diesels are known for great highway efficiency. Now this has that kind of efficiency coming from a gas engine, but also you're going to see the drivetrain changes to help even further that. Transaxles, and this is where we get into these percentage. The transaxle assembly, where the hybrid series drive, where these MG1 and MG2 interact along with the planetary gear set, 6% lighter, 12% smaller, 20% less friction. What I do not know is RPMs of these things and the direction that they spin at the different modes and at the different speeds in. They say that they're higher RPM rated, but all electric motors, the higher RPM you go, the less torque you have, and that's kind of counterintuitive what we want. We actually want lower RPM. So I have this sneaky feeling that these motors are turning a lot less RPM, providing a lot more torque that is usable. Wayne?
They are. They're about half the RPM as the Gen 3.
Thank you. Somebody finally looked that up and got it. Inverters. What they did with the inverter now is directly on top of the transaxle. Before it was off and they had to run cabling to it. Now it's right on top. The cables drop right in. Less weight, more efficient, less cabling, less heat. 3 modes still, power, normal, and eco. Eco, what all these do is really, for us, is they change the way the throttle input. Full throttle will give you full throttle no matter what input, what mode you're in. But if you step in half from idle to about half throttle, when you're in eco, you're only getting about a quarter of the output of the engine. Whereas in power mode, at half, you're getting half the output of the engine. So that same amount of accelerator power will give you more in power mode, but if you floor it, they all got the same amount of power. Question? Nothing? Okay. The battery.
I have one comment about the diesel. So I think the best diesels are like 43 or 44%.
Yes.
But they get a sort of unfair advantage in mileage because there's 11% more energy in fuel.
Yes.
It makes it look like they're more efficient than they are.
And what he's talking about is diesel. Diesel has about 10+% more energy content per gallon of gasoline, so they get kind of an unfair advantage. The EPA, when they test these cars, they test it on pure gas that's non-ethanol. So the cars, the way they're rated, they're actually 3 to 5 and even up to 6% higher than what we're going to see because our fuel is lower energy content. So it was a good question. I'm just relating that to the gasoline that we have here. Okay. Here's the key. They do sell Prius 2 that has the same, it's nickel metal hydride chemistry, but they changed it. It's better. It receives power better. It puts power out better. It is lighter weight. It's a little bit smaller. And that is in the European Prius. All the European Priuses use the nickel metal hydride. But here, from the Prius 2 Echo to the 2 Prius 3s and the 2 Prius 4s, we get a new lithium-ion battery. Not only is it lighter and smaller, more efficient, but when you drive this car, you're going to find what we call MG1 is the small motor generator, will charge this thing so much faster than previous generations MG1. And because of that, there is a lot more electric driving capability out of this new generation car than even the Gen before it. My rule of thumb in a Gen 2 is anytime you can, you go 0 to 15 under electric and then start the engine. Force it if you have to. And then start a cycle for propulsive glide, whatever. In the Gen 3, I'd move that up to about 17. It was a little bit more electric. On this one, drive it up to whatever it's going to go, whatever traffic will allow. It'll start the engine, it'll charge the battery right back up, and it'll be cycling like that around town all by itself. It's pretty incredible how efficient they've got the electric driving experience in this car. And because they've done all of that work on NVH and the mounts, the transitions between engine on and engine off are much, I shouldn't say the Gen 2 or the Gen 3 were bad, but you could feel them. In some cases, you don't even feel this one. They're getting better and better and better with each generation going through. Another kicker here, besides the battery now going under the hood like standard, so you can jump it normally if you have to. Try not to jump in. 21.6 was the Gen 3 at 21.6 cubic feet of cargo volume in the hatch. They're up to 24.6 for the 2, 3, and 3 Touring. And they're 24.6 because they have a mini spare under the cargo floor. 27.3 cubic feet in the 2 Echo and the 4 and 4 Touring. Now what they do is they give you that full space plus that little bit of space where the mini spare is. Now they have just an inflator kit, so you do have that. 27 cubic feet in this. We're starting to approach the volume of a small crossover in a Prius. Okay, you're getting crossover like utility from a Prius that is getting double and triple mileage, and most people driving their small crossovers around town. It's a big deal. Okay, dual 4.2 full-color TFT displays. One of the issues I have with both the Gen 2 and especially Gen 3, if you have a Gen 3, the navigation wash out in the sun, you couldn't see it. It's just absolutely terrible no matter what you do with contrast or brightness. That's all gone. These displays are so much brighter, so much more color, and for our eyes we can see them even in direct sunlight. They're just that much better. They're more colorful, more detail, and it just makes the driving experience better because you're not fighting that, what does that say, and then back on the road again. It's just easier to understand. Qi wireless charging. For anybody that doesn't know what Qi is, some smartphones can be charged without a cord. You just set them on the plate and they charge up. The Prius is available with a Qi charging system in the higher end trains as an option. Kind of cool because you'll never plug it into your car, and everybody knows about cords and cars. They're a pain in the neck. Front seat priority AC. What this does is it's looking for weight in that passenger seat. If there's no weight in the passenger seat, why would it want to blow cool air or air conditioning into that passenger if nobody's there? It'll blow it just on you as the driver, and you can control it manually or let it do it auto. But in auto, if you're just the only driver, it's going to blow cool air coming out your vents or warm air in the winter, and it's going to leave those vents closed. So you're getting the full activity of the HVAC system in the car to you instead of to empty space. It makes it more comfortable and more efficient. New full color HUD. The previous gen heads-up display was one color, and it was a little small, and it was hard to read. This new one, you've got the hybrid system, you've got your navigation and speed right up in front, in color, and it's easy to read. This only comes in a higher end trims with another package, but it's an improvement. And I did drive with one with an HUD, and it's easier to read. Direct sunlight doesn't matter. It's just a nicer system. N-Tune audio. Now, this is where I've always thought that the Prius lacked. Gen 2 and Gen 3, even when you went to the JBL systems, their audio systems were just, they left me flat. I thought that even when you spend a lot of money and get this nice audio system, it never sounded really good. Now, even the base model audio system sounds better than before, the base N-Tune. Plus, it has a lot more features in it for smartphone interaction. And then as you move up and you get into JBL, you get great audio, great navigation. The one thing missing, no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto for the lower end trims. Now, if you hear about Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, if you're driving with a navigation, a really nice navigation system, to me, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is more of a hindrance than a help, because you're stuck with their maps and their display and the way that it is. And sometimes there's not enough information there. So in the higher end trims, that's not needed. But in the low, like the package 2s, okay, the Prius 2s, oh, I wish this had this Apple Android, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, because it would really help. So it's not perfect, but it's a massive improvement over the Gen 2 and Gen 3. Okay? Oh, safety. Toyota spent a ton of time to bring the latest safety technology into the Gen 4 Prius. They're targeting the NHTSA 5-star and the IHS Top Safety pick with the plus rating. Plus rating means it has to have some kind of autonomous braking without you being involved. And if you're coming to a pedestrian or a car is easy to see with a radar or a photo camera. Seeing a person's a little different. This system's smart enough to see that. It can't see an animal running across, but it can see people, and it can see cars, and it will automatically stop for you. Really cool feature. It'll scare you when you're doing it. Fortunately, they allow us to do it with big balloon cars, and you're coming in these things at 40 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, wham, it stops by itself. But it's one of those things where if you're distracted even for a second, sometimes you need that. It'll warn you, both audibly and with a display flashing, and then it'll take over if needed. And it's not supposedly going to make you miss the accident, but it's going to do everything it can to make sure that either the collision energy is reduced or you miss it all completely. Blind spot monitoring across traffic alert, that's kind of common standard across a lot of automobiles, and it's finally in with the Prius. We've already talked about the intelligent sonar, but this intelligent sonar also works in the back. When you're back into things on the higher end trims with this package, it can tell you, and it will stop the car before you hit something. It'll warn you, it'll show you in the camera, you're coming up to something, and if you're not going to stop, it will auto stop you. So even going backwards, that system is engaged and ready to keep your car from getting a little crunch time. Okay? Full speed dynamic radar cruise control. Now, I didn't have enough time in this to really get a feel, and I'll wait till we get the final production models and make my decision. A lot of these systems are very aggressive. They will maintain the distance as you are in heavy traffic down to 0 miles per hour, all the way up to full throttle and 100 miles an hour. That's what you set your cruise control at. And what they do is they allow you not to have to pay attention to worry about starting up 0, 30, 20, 50, 20, 10, 0, 15. It does it automatically. You never touch the accelerator. It'll maintain the distance with whatever the car's in front of you. However, again, I haven't tried this, but many of the systems that are out today are too aggressive, meaning they are really hard on the accelerator to keep up with the truck or the car in front of you, and they're really hard on the brakes when you're coming in close. And no matter where you set that. Again, I don't know if this system is as good as some of the Europeans. I'm just mentioning that it's there, and the possibility is it could be rough. I can't wait till you guys tell me how it's going to be, because I have not been in production vehicles. I've been in
No, that's fine, but you didn't want me to vary it. You didn't want to verify anything that's
steering wheel controls.
you just want me to go.
The lane departure warning and the radar cues are now on the steering wheels, which in some cars they're in little buttons underneath the dash. They're right there where they're supposed to be. On the higher end trims that have this equipment, the 3 touring and the 4. Again,
What color is still in the name?
lane departure warnings, so you can turn on and turn off your lane departure warning, meaning it's looking with the camera at the lane you're in, and if it sees you swerving over, it'll warn you, but also it has in the safety package a system that'll give you a little nudge. It won't keep you centered, but it'll give you a little nudge to keep you in, and you can turn that on and off from the steering wheel instead of pushing underneath the dash. And then the radar cruise control, you can set the limits as to the distance following, and I shouldn't say distance because it's time-based, it's not distance-based. The faster you go, the further you'll be back at 3/4 of a second. But it's like a 3/4 and a 1.5 and a 3 and a 4 is what I think that they're doing. I'll have to, again, I don't have the time with that. But that was radar cruise control systems. Not only are they smart and they take some of the load off of that when it's, speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down.
Smart's a great guy.
But they also add that safety, because that system is also used in this automatic braking. It really works. You take your mind off of the road for just a second, and something comes in, it will warn you audibly. You'll see a flash in the screen, and then if you still aren't touching the brakes, it will stop you. Maybe not to actually miss whatever, but it will slow you down enough where the collision will be a lot less than if it wasn't there. Okay?
What was it? First thing at the finish line.
Back.
Top thing?
Parallel, okay. It's got 2 parking systems. We've all heard about parallel parking, where you can just hit the button and it'll guide you past where you want to park, and then it'll guide you in. And all you have to do is keep your foot on the brake to make sure it's going slow enough. The Prius also has a backup automatic system. So when you want to back in, you can just hit this button, it'll guide that car and guide it straight back. That's something new for, I have never seen it in any car except for the Prius, and it's available only in the Prius yet. We'll make it through the Twitter lineup later. But again, the Prius is go before, and this is the kind of technology that they're putting into the Prius to make that experience of driving more enjoyable and more techy for those people that aren't really into all of this fuel efficiency.
Anyway, just as a clarification, if you're parking in parking spots, what's the most efficient way to park in a parking spot?
It's called face out. So you never back in, you just pull right through and find your space. Go park in the back of any grocery store, whatever. Don't park in the front, don't fight everything. And you're more efficient and less chance of hitting anybody or anything, or kids or anything like that.
That's driving smarter 101.
Yes. Yeah. Always back in.
Okay. Here's this lane departure. Well, let's go. We've done pre-collision where it'll auto stop you. Okay. Lane departure alert. It'll just kind of give you that little bit of nudge. Okay. You get some warnings, and then you give it a little nudge. It's not meant to auto control this car and drive it down the road. It's just going to give you a nudge. If you are distracted for even a second, it's going to give you a nudge, and you're like, whoa. Okay. And then it'll give you a nudge and bring you back in. It's not going to drive the car for you. It's not meant for that. It's just going to bring you back in. Auto high beams, and this isn't high-end trims. What auto high beams do is, you know, we're constantly at night when we're driving, we're on high beams and low beams. High beams, low beams, depends what's ahead of us. It can see the car ahead of you, either coming or going. It can see the tail lamps or it can see the headlights, so it will auto dim. Or it can see signs, or if you're coming into a bright area, it will go dim. Automatically, you don't have to touch it. I think it's a little bit, I don't know, I kind of like to do it myself. But for some, all these new auto features, it just, you don't have to worry about it. You never just leave it on and it goes. Okay?
That's really good.
And then this pre-collision system, 7 to 50 it activates, but it will go down to 0. All it is that this is detecting not just a car stop in front of you, but also a person who walks in front of you. This system can warn you audibly. You're going to see it in the dash flashing, and then it will try to auto brake and miss whatever's ahead if you're distracted even for a fraction of a second. That's what these systems are for. And this Toyota Safety Sense, it's a big deal. This isn't autonomous driving yet, but this is the next step. And these systems are meant to reduce or eliminate a collision at these low speeds where, you know, my son, his car got the corner knocked off with his PHEV because somebody backed into him while he was going. If this thing was there, it would have warned him that guy was coming. You know? Just little things like that. It's going to save you all that hassle of going, oh, I got a $400 job. Yes, it'll pick up a child. Anything that's standing up and walking normal, but animals are a little bit too fast for it to detect right now. Give it 2 years, it'll detect everything. Okay? Wait. Oh. Go ahead.
With all these like tweaks of self-driving, just like the Google is the total, will it ever get, is it there for those parts where you actually are distracted, or is it if you're a normal driver and you're pretty aware, are those things going to be going on as an annoyance or a distraction? Like you're driving and it's warning you when you go, I don't need to be warned, I know what's going on.
You can turn them off.
What's your recommendation?
Today, these warning systems, I like to do what's called a ridge ride, so I'm riding the line of the road, and the lane departure warning systems are a nuisance to me, and I turn them off because of that. However, I don't like turning off the forward collision warning systems. In the future, when we go to a full autonomous driving, which 2020 it's right here. 2025, most every car sold will have some kind of autonomous driving to it. That doesn't mean you want to just let it go or do its thing, but it can. And these computers are better than us. We're just distracted by too many things. It's, you know, our smartphones.
That one for the departure lane and for the backup and all those warning systems, how long have all those systems out? I was just wondering how far have they tested them before we buy them?
This stuff has actually been tested for 20 plus years.
Oh, it has.
But for the consumer and a consumer car, this is Toyota's first time. They've probably been working on it probably 4 years before, you know, we had heard about it.
So a pretty safe buy.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that they're ready for prime time for all situations, because these autonomous systems are still new to the consumer, and the sensors always get better. But for now, these things will protect you more than the average, we're humans, we get distracted, and I do too.
There's one problem with the backup when you put it in back. A lot of times that camera gets a little foggy up.
Yeah.
Is there any improvements on that?
I can tell you that I did see some issues with the backup camera in the winter like this. There's some mess here, but these are sonar based too. I should probably mention that. In the winter, when you're going on the highway in the snow and these sensors get covered up, a warning will come up and it'll say, no longer available. Sensors need to be cleaned or something because the snow is packing up on all this stuff. So it'll give you ample warning that these systems aren't available because of the conditions that you're in. Okay, guys. My first impressions, and I've only driven the Prius by about 750 to 1,000 miles in all prototypes. 1,000 miles going to Detroit back in. Much improved on-center feel, less body roll, and it provides a more confidence-inspiring driving perception. Okay, when you have a car that's roly-poly going down the road, and the Priuses were known for that. Going around corners, they really rolled up. They're on the G-pad, they did pretty good around 0.8. That's pretty good, except when you're feeling this, really heavy body roll, it woke you up a little bit because you're actually moving up and down in the drive position. This new independent suspension and the way they set up the steering and the spring and shocks, flatter, around the corner, a little bit more confidence inspiring, a little bit better feel of the road, and with all of that, yet they still made it a softer ride when you're going over bumps and less noise. So there's a massive improvement there. Ergonomics, slight improvement. Japanese vehicles have a little bit too short a seat bottom for me. If you're a 5'8", you have a 32-inch seat or less, usually you're okay. But the tolerance that you have, it might be a little bit short for you, and there's not enough reach with the telescopic wheel, maybe. So make sure you want to fit the car. It is better than the Gen 3, which was better than the Gen 2, which is massively better than the Gen 1. There's always a little improvement going forward, so it'll become more comfortable for you as you're moving in through the generations. Just make sure it fits you before you make the decision to sign the bottom line. Interior noise, it's got thicker glass, it's got all these insulated added features to it. It's quiet, it just is. And that, like you said about that audio system, it's better. It's not trying to overcome noise, but it's also better all around.
How do they put sound insulated glass?
It's just thicker. Efficiency? Let's find out. This was my first highway drive around Dana Point in California. I had another journalist in the car. 20.4-mile drive on the highway. You know what that says? That's triple digits on the highway. I haven't experienced this in decades. And this was in a four-door sedan, set up as it came from Toyota with another journalist in the car. In fact, he was so impressed, he says, "What did you just get?" And then he starts snapping pictures. He says, "We just got 100 miles per gallon." He says, for me, that's kind of normal in some instances. I was only allotted 30 minutes, and I'm going a little bit over. My timer ran out, so I'll finish the rest of this with an overlay. But anyways, yeah, another journalist and I taking a mostly highway drive over 21-mile distance, and we ended up in triple digits at 102 miles per gallon. Then we move into the city, and this is, again, the Prius is a super city car, but my first drive in this, and it pops out 147. Now, I did burn some stock off, so this is actually about 140 over a 22-mile city drive. Impressive. If the average person gets 1/3 of that, it's still impressive, let alone what this thing offered me at max effort. They shouldn't be giving you these kind of numbers on the highway in a city loop. Just amazing. While at the short lead, Toyota was offering me the chance to do an overnight drive where I could do measured runs. And when I say measured runs, what I do is I top off a vehicle so that reset all the displays, and then I drive close to 100 miles, and then I'll do the same thing. And the reason I do that, and I use Garmin and Google Maps just to make sure my distance is real, because odometers are always short, and that's to a car. In this case, 92.8 miles driven was actually 94.8 miles actual, and that's per FTC and DOT rules, so that's not uncommon. In the past, though, Toyota Priuses in particular have had 3 to 10% over reports. That means their fuel consumption displays could have said you were getting 60 miles per gallon when you were actually getting 54. And I don't like that. So this is where I was also very pleasantly surprised, because the actual came in at over 90.4 miles per gallon versus 89.6 indicated. That's the first time I've been in a Toyota, and especially the Prius, where the fuel consumption display was actually under what you really received. That's amazing there. So once I have this offset, in this case it was almost a plus 1%, I can create a speed versus fuel economy chart. And the way I do this, I usually drive about, it's about a 10 to 15 mile, depending on my exits available in California, where temperatures are moderate, winds are reasonable, if not altogether calm. I do this back and forth, and I take myself out of it. My numbers would be higher than this because I'd take advantage of any type of terrain. But setting cruise control at the speed per Garmin GPS system, not the speedometer. And then I reset on the fly at a particular point in elevation, and then 10 to 15 miles down the road, when I hit that same elevation again, I record my number. And then I do that same route, only backwards, starting at the same point I just finished at, and then finishing up where I started the previous one. And I can create a profile for speed at 50, 55, 60, 65, and 70. And in this case, you can see at 50 miles per hour, this thing's pushing out 78.4 miles per gallon real. That's pretty damn impressive. But even if you go up to 60 miles per hour, you're still getting 64 miles per gallon. I haven't seen that. In fact, there's no 5-door or 5-passenger car I know of that can do that. That's truly amazing. Even at 70, you're still getting 50 miles per gallon. That's probably the only little shortfall. If a car has a crossover, and when I say crossover, where the EPA highway crosses over at what speed, and that's what I use these graphs and charts for, is to figure out where that crossover is. It crossed over at 67.7 miles per hour. Anything between 67 and 69 miles per hour, it fits the profile. The EPA is not gamed. In this case, it did. I was just hoping for a little bit more, 69, maybe even 70, to say it's even more efficient. But again, 50 miles per gallon at 70, 60, almost 65 at 60, and at 50, you're getting almost 80 miles per gallon. That's impressive. And here in the Chicago area, when I get a press vehicle, the average speed from the previous journalist or 5 journalists over a few thousand miles is usually about 29 miles per hour. Nobody's driving 70 all the time like you think they, everybody's a lead foot and racing. They don't do that because we have to go through traffic and we have to drive through subdivisions and into our garage, etc. In California, I always see numbers in the low 20s, 22, 21 miles per hour average speed over 1,000 miles. That's kind of normal because traffic's much heavier out there. So that's what we average. And here at these higher average speeds, much higher average speeds, you can see the fuel efficiency available. So in conclusion, the 2016 Toyota Prius, it is one of my top picks for the compact and midsize class. And the reason why is because the ride and handling quotient is so much better than the previous generations. It feels more like a normal car, and when you're pushed to the limits, it doesn't scare you. It's actually very progressive through to those limits before tires actually start to break loose. The utility, there's more cargo space. It's easier to load. There's better sight lines all around. Hatches are always better than trunks to get stuff in and out. The safety technology that we discussed in the previous slides, so much better. And then, of course, you have the efficiency, the new technology with, even the audio system better, the smart screens, the better displays. Don't put this one in the back burner when you're shopping cars. Put it at the front of your short list. Compare everything else to that. And then think of an insurance policy. Do you insure your house for fire or tornado damage or anything like that? Of course you do. Do you insure your car? Liability and collision? Of course you do. Well, think of buying a Prius as an insurance policy against $4 gasoline, which could arrive again at any time.